Tao khê môn dòng biết chạy mãi về phương đông. Quang âm
con kính bạch sư ông. Đại chúng nghe không ạ? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Dạ con kính bạch sư ông. Kính chào đại chúng.
Dear respected thầy, good morning, dear Sangha. Happy New Year to you all.
Một năm thì mình có 365 ngày. Và chúng ta
In a year, we have 365 days, and we have gone
364 ngày.
one day, which means we have 364 more days.
Cái quá khứ
Now,
gần nhất của mình,
at the closest past, which was
ngày
yesterday,
đầu tiên của năm mới,
the first day of the new year,
mình đã sử dụng cái ngày đó như thế nào cùng với nhau
together.
để chúng nhớ không?
Do you remember?
Sáng được làm biếng.
In the morning, we had lazy day. The beginning of the year, we had lazy morning. And after that, we had breakfast, walking meditation, listening to the Dharma Talk, Dharma sharing, and at night, we play. We sang. That was the first day of the new year. Wasn't that wonderful? Who in here felt content with your first day of the year? And who would like to return to continue to practice here?
Okay.
In Vietnam, the first day of the year is very important. People believe that if everything goes well on the first day, peaceful, then we have the feeling that the whole year will be like that. That is why young children, they love it. Even if they made mistakes, breaking things or whatever, then their parents will not reprimand them because it's the first day of the year. If they reprimand, it's not good luck. So all the children, they hope that the 365 days will be like the first day of the year so that their parents are kind, sweet, no yelling. And that faith, that belief is very wonderful. We believe in something that is beautiful, wholesome, and we want to keep them. And we are very careful and mindful. We are sitting here and we have a profession, a vocation, right? A profession to help us, whether that is healthcare professionals, educators, or working in different fields. We have the profession to help raise a family, support ourselves. That is why the first thing that the children, after they would go to kindergarten, learn how to write, and growing up, they go to university to study a profession. The study outside is for us to escape poverty because poverty is filled with suffering. That is why we need to learn, work, in order for us to avoid the suffering of poverty. But that is not enough because there are many people who are very rich, but they continue to suffer because they do not know how to take care of their body and their mind. That is why when we come here to the monastery, we learn how to practice in order for us to liberate our suffering inside. And of course, the monastics here, how do we learn to practice? We need to learn how to cook, organize retreats, learn the basic in order for us to serve and the practice to nourish our body and our mind in order for us to serve, help people who come here. Yesterday, a young person asked me, the monastics organize retreat here, you're so busy. Are you tired? Or can we organize less retreats so that the monastics have more time to rest? The truth is, when we organize retreat, it's not only for our lay friends, but also for the monastics to practice too. That is why the retreat is like a gift that we offer to one another. The monastics, we love to receive gifts. I personally like to receive gifts. These are not material gifts, money, but it's spiritual gifts that we can offer peace and happiness to one another. So thank you to this retreat. We have 300 gifts. Very joyful. On the last day of the year, Sister Uyển Nghiêm mentioned about spiritual bypassing, which means that when we come to a spiritual tradition, sometimes we are just looking for something to escape our suffering because we do not want to face the difficulties because we feel we don't have enough strength. There are many traditions like, oh, you must pray or you must chant a higher power, higher one, and after you pass away, then that higher power, somewhere in the Pure Land, somewhere in the distant future, that that person is like the leader, and if you practice diligently, then you will have a lotus flower, a place up there. But Buddhism in Plum Village, when we come to practice, what do we receive? We are not saying this tradition is better than other tradition, but when we come to a place to practice, we need to understand clearly the spirit of practice in that place. What is it? And if we don't understand, then we cannot practice. So Buddhism in Plum Village, Thầy, his whole life, his deepest wish was engage Buddhism. So what is engaged Buddhism? In these past 5 days, what have we learned? And what can we bring home with us? Perhaps you have been here many times for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. But perhaps some of you come here for the first time. So, what is the purpose of Plum Village tradition? What is engaged Buddhism? I remember 7 years ago when I was in Thailand, in the holiday retreat, a friend, after lunch that day, I was so sleepy. So I prepared a cup of tea, and both of us spoke. And this friend, he shared, I have been to Plum Village for 3 times. This is my third time. First time was a wake-up retreat. Second retreat was a family, and third retreat is the holiday. But how come? I intentionally come to 3 different retreats because I want to see is there anything special? Why there are so many people coming? But I see that every retreat is the same. The format is very similar. I come listening to the bell, eating meditation, total relaxation, beginning new Dharma sharing. I see, so strange. So now I want to ask you, I hope that you can help me because I feel irritated inside. I see that Plum Village often speaks about breathing. But if we breathe only, what can we resolve? If in the world there are so many difficulties, like conflicts, religious conflicts, or social injustice, or contradiction in the family, so how can the breathing help? And he asked, and he spoke a lot, and I sat there just enjoying my tea. And he said, are you thirsty? Why are you drinking so much tea? I say, I'm very thirsty. And he was so eager. I just sat there and drank tea, and he said, Sister, what is your conclusion? Will the breathing help with the conflict? And I say, no. I just say no. And he felt like so disappointed. I will never forget his gaze. He was so disappointed, and I've had pity for him. And I said, Here, I give you a cup of tea. And after that, he drank tea. And he was so eager, waiting for my response. And he asked, really? No? Then how come we talk about the breathing? And I asked him, is the tea delicious? And he asked me, oh, is this tea? And of course, I understand his intention is practicing mindful breathing. What can it help for his practice? And if I say yes, I can't say no, because the breathing is not the solution to solve social injustice or all of our problems. The insight, the right view is something that helps. But how can we have insight, right view? Then we need to have method of practice in order for us to have right view. Coming to Plum Village, we learn mindfulness, and we understand mindfulness, which means aware what is happening inside of us and around us. But how can we have that insight? In the past, when Thầy discovered the full awareness of breathing sutras, Thầy felt like he's the happiest person on earth. We know that Thầy is our teacher, a great teacher, successful in his own practice. And in the archives of the Buddha's teachings, there are 84,000 Dharma doors. In the sutras, it's very rich. But how come? Thầy felt that he's happiest when he discovered the 16 exercises of breathing. Our teacher is filled with insight, so he returned to its roots and saw that the monastics and the Buddha practiced the full awareness of breathing, and Thầy himself, he himself practiced the full awareness of breathing and succeeded. So his whole life, that's all he taught. And even if you come to Plum Village for the first time or 55 more years, the monastics will continue to share about this practice. Perhaps old stories, but the way that we share is different to make it more relevant and appropriate to today's time. But the foundation is still the same. Mindfulness, if we talk about mindfulness, mindfulness means to be aware. But aware of what? Thầy shared that aware is aware of something. Aware of our anger, aware of our breath, aware of our sadness. And so, for example, when we have a difficulty, we share that we practice mindfulness. The first thing is we practice mindfulness of breathing. Our breathing is part of our body, right? Our mind is very hard to see, to grasp. One time is this, other time is that. We were just happy, now we're sad, now we're disappointed, now we're happy, but with our breathing, it is something that we can feel directly because it is part of our body. And when we return to our breath, to listen to our breathing, then suddenly we realize one thing, that the quality of our breathing reflects the state of our mind. Do you see that? For example, when we are angry, our breathing is filled with heat, heavy. When we are sad, our breathing is lethargic. When we are peaceful and happy, our breath is very calm and soothing. And that is the first thing for us to calm. And in our head, it's always filled with thinking, non-stop thinking. That is why the breath helps to bring the mind back to the body. If we are not present for our body, then how do we know what is happening to us? When we know what is happening to us, then we know how to resolve. They say that the mind, the stream of the mind, the river of the mind. When I first practiced, I was curious. We practice meditation. I stop my thinking. Then if it's empty like that, where can I get the insight? I thought to myself, strangely. But as I get older, I understand that at that time I try to analyze. If I'm a living organism, then of course I have my senses. And when I have these senses interact with what is outside, then images, sounds, and then it can trigger our thinking. For example, we like to eat pho noodles. Then we need to have, that fragrance. So when we pass by and we smell pho, and that image of bowl of pho comes up, or we like fragrance of the perfume of someone that we love. And when we travel somewhere and we smell this fragrance, and an image of our loved one comes up. And so if we don't sleep and we are awake, then around us there are so many sounds, images. Then of course we need to have the object of mind for us to think. Then how can we stop not talk about our lives? We have experienced so many years, so many things have entered our story consciousness, our mind. They just come up. How can we stop? When I just first practiced, and my understanding was still limited, and so when I continue to practice, I discovered that when we we practice to stop our thinking. It doesn't mean that these thinkings are gone. One time in my sitting meditation, and suddenly I practice like all of us. Come into the meditation hall, sit down, adjust my posture, my breathing, and suddenly I felt there was this stillness inside of me. And I was very awake, alert, and I was aware of it. And I felt the stillness in my mind, and I discovered that, oh, this is how it is. When we have a state of mindfulness, we can recognize, and when we can recognize, then we can see the problems clear. Now we can solve a problem in a mind that is quite confused, filled with anger. We cannot see. Then I say, oh, when this mind is still, what do I use to see it? I continue to ask myself questions. That's very simple. When we look at the river that is very calm, then we are able to see what is under the river: trash, rocks, white rocks, brown rocks, clear water, fish. So when we stop our thinking, we can hear the noise, the non-stop thinking inside our mind, and we sit still enough, then all this noise, this will calm down, and our experience of life will guide us. So in Buddhism, right thinking speaks of right thinking, which means we think about our problems, our life experiences, what can they teach us? And in a state where the mind is calm and with our life experiences, then we start to have right view, insight. In Buddhism, we call that as enlightenment. Enlightenment doesn't mean that we will sit for a long time and then we have the halo and we see life, there's no more suffering. That's not enlightenment. That's probably in movies. Enlightenment means an insight. It has the ability to, to remove a wrong perception, a stagnation. It's a breakthrough, and that can help us liberate from that wrong perceptions. So in our daily life, we have many small views that can help us to be to transform our suffering. So don't wait until big enlightenment. Small enlightenment, like a cup of water, it can liberate our life. In our consciousness, it is like a horse ready to run away, break its chain and run to the past. Its suffering cry for the failures, it will run to the future with the worries, and perhaps run in the present, worry which direction to take. I don't know about in America, but I remember when I was young, I wanted to be an adult. I did not like vegetables, but my grandmom knew that. Now there's only one way to trick her, to trick me to eat vegetables and say, "Oh, eat vegetables. It will help you to grow more and be an adult quicker." So when I was 16, I made my identification card because when I had that identification card, I felt I'm mature, I'm adult, which means I can go ask for a loan. If I go out and play, I can rent a room and ask for a job. And so when I had that ID card, the first thing I did, do you know what I did? I escaped home and became a nun. But I failed because when my family came to the temple, they say to the abbess there that my daughter is not yet 18 years old. If this temple accepts her, I will sue you. The abbess was so scared. She said, "My child, go home, go study. Once you turn 18, you come back and I will take you." Then I return home. And so at that time, I thought, oh, 18 years old is considered as adult, mature enough. But the truth is, when I turned 30, I started to understand what does it mean to be an adult, to be mature. Of course, it depends in different culture, different country. When I read books, I see that it depends each country. Some countries 14, 17, 18, 21. It is different for each country, which means at the age where we can vote, we can take care of ourselves, we are responsible for our own action before the legal system, and we no longer need the support of our family. And of course, we have skills like know how to drive or financial support ourselves. When I turned 30, one time I was already a nun. One time I was very angry at one of my sisters. And in that anger, I wanted to go to her and reprimand her. I was well prepared. I prepared a script, but when I went to her room, suddenly I stopped. I came back to my study desk. I sat down. I sat for a long time and I cried. After that, I took out a sheet of paper and I wrote on it, "There's a young child who does not want to grow, and there's an adult that is not yet mature." I cried for my younger sister and also for myself because I see that my younger sister has all the conditions to grow, to be mature, to be taught, to care, to guide But she does not want to grow. She just want to she does not want to be on her 2 feet, always blaming, expecting, and no matter how much love she receives, it's not enough. And for me, I have practiced so many years, and I still have so much anger. I cannot take care of my emotion, and I just want to go and reprimand her. And if after my reprimandation, she's not gonna be more mature, I will continue to suffer. And so then I cry. I realize that I personally have not yet matured, even though now I'm 30. And for the first time, I understand what it means to be mature. Being mature means I understand myself and understand others, have the ability to take care my emotions, my perceptions, and my mental formations, my thoughts. It is only when we can do that that we can be mature. Perhaps we're 50, 60 years old, and we still act like a child. We still hurt those around us. We hurt our spouse, our children, or our parents. Then we are not yet mature. Maturity is a process, it's a journey. In Vietnam, there is a sentence. First, we give birth to a child, then we become a parent. Then we give birth to the grandchildren, then we have the grandparents. When I was young, I did not understand. What do you mean? Dad must come out first before the children. Then, of course, the grandparents is before the parents and the children. Then why is it that we give birth to the children first, the parents, and then the grandparents? It's quite opposite. But as I get older, I understand. When we give birth to a child, this person becomes a parent. When we give birth to a child, then we call this person as a mom or dad, a parent, and then the grand we start to call then we start to call grandparents. But in truth, parents and child are born at the same time. And so when give birth to a child, they will begin a journey of becoming a person, to grow to mature, and the parents also begin a journey to become parents, to become better parents. And so both sides grow at the same time and learn at the same time. So there's no parents considered as perfect parents because we are learning to be better parents each day. And this child, under the guidance and the love of their parents, will grow day by day and to learn to grow. And now, coming back to mindfulness, the retreat is illuminating our path. So, our path, what is our path? Our path is understanding and love. And we want to illuminate it through our practice of mindfulness. And this practice of mindfulness, concretely, is the 5 mindfulness trainings. Today, I will talk about family because majority of us are parents. And perhaps some of you in the future will be parents, or some of you will choose a life of single like the monastics, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the future continuation. We don't have the transmission. The monastics are also transmitting to our future spiritual children. The practice of 5 mindfulness trainings are the concrete expression of mindfulness. We consume in mindfulness. The 5th mindfulness training, we eat in a way,
chúng ta tiếp xúc với những hình ảnh âm thanh như thế nào,
we consume sounds, images, then we become that.
nếu như mình
If we
không tiếp xúc với những cái môi trường
don't interact
có những người bạn
with
có khó khăn hay là
with wholesome friends, when we suffer, if we know how to stop, to breathe, to listen, to take care of our emotions,
biết nói lời ái ngữ
learn how to speak lovingly,
để mà mình có thể tái
in order for us to reestablish communication. If there's difficulties in the family, then how can we have a good life if we don't practice this? And the third mindfulness training, true love, taking care of our sexual energy
để mình có thể chăm sóc
so that we can take care of our family,
bảo vệ cho con em của mình.
protect our children, protect children.
Ở Việt Nam
In Vietnam, in a year,
30.000
there are about 25,000 to 30,000 abortions.
thì chúng ta tự hỏi
Then we can ask ourselves if we do not know how to practice
năng lượng tình dục của mình
to take care of our sexual energy,
thì sẽ như thế nào? Nếu mình
then what would happen
thì làm sao mình có
if we don't know how to take care of our sexual energy? What can we teach our children? How can we teach them to take care of their body and mind? We don't know how many children experience sexual abuse when they were young and they use their whole life
để mà chữa lành nó,
to heal that trauma, that wound. That trauma, that wound carries the whole life. Why is a practice so much needed?
rồi cái ý thứ hai
And then the second mindfulness training, social justice.
trong chúng ta ai
In each one of us, we try our best to learn and work.
để thoát
Why?
tại vì
To escape, to avoid poverty, because we know poverty can create a lot of anger and ignorance. The poverty can lead people to wrong path
tại vì mình nghèo quá,
because we're so poor.
mình không có cơ hội đi học
We don't have a chance to get an education.
và suốt ngày mình chỉ nghĩ
And every day we just think about
nó được lấp đầy thôi.
how we can be full in our stomach.
Cơ hội đâu nữa
And so, where do we have the opportunity to strengthen our spirituality,
trong nghệ thuật
to beautify
nó rất là khó.
in different aspects like arts? So, when we practice the second mindfulness trainings, we are able to let go of the greediness. If we have the condition
Sinh ra
to be born, grow up, and have an education and be financially stable, then we want to share our time,
tiền bạc của chúng ta
energy, and material resources with those who are in need. When we go eat in a fancy restaurant, we know that there are children that just need a potato and they're happy the whole day.
và khi mà mình biết cho đi
And when we know how to give, then we feel very happy.
cho nên cái sự tu tập
So our practice helps us to feel more fulfilled and content.
rồi mình thực tập giới thứ nhất
We practice the first mindfulness training, non-violence.
bây giờ mình biết mình
Now we know that
ở đây
we're sitting here, but we know that there are many places that have wars.
và cái bạo động
And the violence, the greatest violence is the killing.
sinh mạng nào cũng cần được sống hết.
All living beings want to live,
Một cái cây
even if that is a tree.
mà thì nếu quý vị để ý á,
If you pay attention, there are trees when it's lack of light, and if there's a crack for the light to enter, then that tree, instead of standing straight, it will bend itself. It will find its way to the light for it to grow. And we see that all living beings want to grow, want to live. So when we practice the first mindfulness training, we try our best to respect life, protect life, nature, environment. We become a vegetarian not because of our religious beliefs, but because of our compassion. We want to offer life to all living beings. That's why we decided to become a vegetarian. If you pay attention, when we don't take care of our emotions, then it's very easy for us to go on the path of violence. That's why some people say power Violence is a manifestation of our weakness. Like when we try to teach our children and they don't listen, we use a stick and hit them. And when we hit our children, then we are more in pain because it shows that we no longer have any other method. We failed as parents. So, to shine light on our path, the only way is we need to practice. And love is a heritage, it's a legacy. In the monastery, we have difficulties like out there. For example, outside, we often hear complain like, oh, now it's so difficult to raise children because this generation now and the previous generation, the thinking is so different. In the monastery too, there are different generations, and sometimes we have a lot of conflicts, different views. And these different views, what can we use to heal at that? Only love. Because when we love, then it can give us this deep hope, deep wish to find, to understand the young ones, learn to understand the adults also learn to understand the youth. The young generation, why do they think like that? Why do they act like that? And as young person, we also learn how come the previous generation think like that, act like that. Here, the monastics often teach the children, teens, that do you know that when your parents give birth to you, the first time before they give birth to you, they would go look for books, how to, ever since you were in the womb, taking care of you in the womb, and when giving birth to you, it depends on the age. Then how do they teach you, guide you, help you? And once you become teenagers, your personality changes, and what should the parents do? But you, the children, the teens, have you go online, research, look for, or go to bookstore and look for books, talk about the difficulties of being a parent? Have you ever asked yourself, are parents feeling pressured? There are parents, as they get older, each day their memory is limited, their health is also limited, a lot of work pressure, and you always expect your parents to understand you. But have you ever asked yourself, do I understand my parents? Have you ever asked yourself, what are my parents' dreams that are not yet fulfilled? And that is education. If we know how to practice, then we can educate ourselves both ways. Adults, we learn to understand the youth, and as youth, we also understand the adults. And once we understand, we know how to love, and we love correctly, then the other person can be happy. So sometimes, parents, we love our children, but we make our children suffer more, and it's the same with the children. As parents, there's a lot of pressure, so we need to learn a lot. In the 14 mindfulness trainings, there is a training. We must be responsible, look deeply in bringing out new lives, and look in the environment, because children, they cannot give birth themselves. We are the one who decide to give birth to a child or not. And so if we don't know how to take care of ourselves, then we will make our children suffer a lot. Talking about love, I think of thầy. Brother Dung, he shared with me that when you go up give Dharma talk, don't cry. I don't know why. It's so easy for the monastics to become emotional, especially when we talk about thầy, the sangha, just these two buttons, and it's very easy to shed tears. I remember one time I was thei's attendant. At that time, there was a retreat in England, and I was very new. And I was not a good practitioner to have this observation this morning. That morning, thầy was at the hermitage where he rested and worked. And that day, Sister Chân Không was thei's driver. And that morning, thầy called me to his library to help him with field work. And then we made sure the lights were off, the gas were turned off, and after that, we left the hermitage to go. On our way to the airport, they say, "Oh, share with me stories. How has your practice been? Do you have fun? How are your siblings?" And I sat and I spoke, shared this story, that story. We laughed, and more than halfway, they asked me, "My child, earlier when you left the hermitage, did you carry my bag? My brown bag? You know, the brown bag that the monastics often carry? In it, there's a voice recorder because whenever he travels, there's sometimes we don't video record, but they would often carry his recorder for his Dharma talks to keep as archive, and also for him to know that this is, a transmission for the future generation." And I didn't remember, I don't know, it was so joyful to be with Thầy. I just followed him, I didn't carry anything. And as we were happy talking, and suddenly Thầy asked me that question. I was so shocked. I say, "No, Thầy." And from a state of so joyful, then just in that second, this feeling of guilt, regret, fear, fear to the point that I didn't say anything. I couldn't say I'm sorry, Thầy. And so I was shaken. I sat there, and Thầy was in the passenger side in front. Thầy gave me his hand. Thầy said, "Where is your hand?" And at that time, my hands were cold and shaken, and he held my hand. His hand was very soft and warm. He held my hand, squeezed my hand, and he said, "It's okay, my child. Maybe my other attendant will bring an extra one, and if you forget, it's okay." And at that time, I felt like light. When Thầy asked me, "Did you bring my brown bag?" At that time, Sister Chân Không said, "Thầy, now we cannot return because we're almost near the airport. If we return, we will be late." And when I heard that, I was in more fear. And when Thầy held my hand and he said, "It's okay, my child, nothing is important." And I will never forget that moment. Thầy, his Dharma talk is not important, but nourish the soul of his student is more important. Thầy did not want me to have a feeling of guilt or regret. Thầy wanted his disciples, his children, to have beautiful memories. And Thầy taught with love, compassion. And I know that I will never make that same mistake again. And I promised myself that when I became a teacher, I would try my best to love my disciple, my younger siblings, like Thầy love. But it's very difficult because my practice is still very weak. And so even if I want, there are times I would make my siblings or my children, my students suffer. So I'm learning, but it's okay. I have the path, I have the method. Then I will just continue to try my best, and everything will be okay. People would say that Buddha Shakyamuni, Buddha is the past, the future Buddha is Maitreya, the Buddha to be born, the manifestation of love. And people often ask Thầy, when? When will that Buddha, Maitreya, appear to help living beings from their suffering? Because more and more we see suffering, violence, anger, social injustice continues to climb, to escalate. And Thầy share, the future Buddha is already here. But because you are not present, so you don't see it. The future Buddha is not an individual, even if it's an excellent individual. The future Buddha is a community of practice. And it's not an individual who can represent to be a Buddha. The future Buddha is the community, because only the strength of a community that has the ability, capacity, insight, love to heal the world. And all of us, we are present in this community to contribute into this work. And so when we come to the monastery, we often join our palms, and we have a gatha, a lotus for you, a Buddha to be. Because in each one of us, we have the ability, the capacity to love, to understand, and to offer our love. So we should not underestimate ourselves. Now we talk a lot about self-love. Love ourselves. But how do we love ourselves? It doesn't mean that we accumulate many things for ourselves, or we have a lot of clothes, beautiful homes, beautiful cars. Love oneself means we can come back to take care ourselves better, and from that we can offer our loved ones. Do you see? Can you see yourself as a Buddha? Can you become a Buddha? Some of you shake your head, nod your head. In the past, Thầy often shared, don't look for the Buddha outside of the Sangha. Because sometimes we see that this Sangha or this community is not good. There are sweet people, but there are irritated people. I just want to go look for a Sangha that everybody is sweet, everybody is fresh, everybody is insightful. Thầy shared that is an idealistic thinking, very childish thinking. It is like we believe in Santa Claus. Because in each one of us, we have positive seeds and negative seeds. And in a community of practice, naturally we nourish that wholesome seeds, positive seeds in each one of us. And because of this collective consciousness, it will permeate, pervasive, contagious, that can help other people. And this is something that we can offer to the world. Society now is going through a lot of challenges, and we want to fight for, advocate for social justice, for gender equality, for climate change. But one thing we forget, which is the most important, is that we advocate for our own rights so that we can win a habit energy. Because sometimes we imprison ourselves because of our worries or fears, despair, and if we are not able to liberate ourselves from these dark states, then how can we contribute to society? If we bring fear, despair, fear, and to call for peace, this is very funny, right? And so each one of us, if we can come back and take care of ourselves, and even if we haven't received the 5 mindfulness trainings, we can participate in the Sangha. And we can learn. Whenever we feel ready, then we receive the trainings. It's not a matter of receiving. When we receive the 5 mindfulness trainings, we have the ceremony. It is a form to support our commitment to be stronger. Some people haven't received the trainings, but they practice well. Even if we receive the trainings and we don't practice, then it's just a form. The most important thing is the content, our presence. In the monastery, we call our elder monastics as our father or mother, those who are senior, who have lived in the community for a long time, that have love, care for the younger siblings, even though they are elder brothers and sisters, but they are also our parents that offer love. And we have elder brother, elder sister, younger brother, younger sister. Even if they're younger, they can also be our teacher. Those who are just recently ordained, but with their solidity, their freshness. And when we have anger, we see this joyful smile, this purity of our younger siblings, it can wake us up. And that's when the younger siblings can become a teacher for us to stop and to start coming back to the practice. And today, I want to use another terminology that is friend. Our friends come to practice with us. They are also our teachers. When we live in a community, everyone is our friend. Each one of them will teach us something differently. When this person drives us crazy, they are teaching us we are not yet patient, we are not yet compassionate. Thank you, my teacher, for giving me this examination on love and patience. And those who give us inclusivity, embrace, and we thank that friend for giving us the lesson on what it means true love. And so, in the Sangha, we can call each other Sư means teacher, Bạn means friend. Every time we see this person, we bow. In Vietnamese, we call it Đạo hữu, which means the friend on the path. But I see that the word Sư Bạn, friend, is very nice. So to end my sharing, I like to invite the whole Sangha to join the palms. It's not a religious act, a devotion. The meaning is that bringing the mind back to the body, we turn to the left, to the right, to bow down, to express our gratitude to our friend for supporting us during the last 5 days. We can do it slowly. Look into their eyes. Yeah. Thank you for your freshness.
Mọi người cảm ơn hết rồi, chỉ có mình con chưa.
So everybody expressed gratitude already except me. So I also like to join my palms. Thank you, everyone, to all of you for being here, supporting the retreat, and also supporting me. And I also want to express my gratitude to Sister Uyển Nghiêm for translating the Dharma Talk today so that all of you could benefit. Thank you, dear Sangha. I wish you all a happy new year with much happiness, joy. Last point. Thầy had a poem. We are not praying for things to be calm, but we just hope that our feet are solid. Because usually we often pray that, oh, I hope that everything, I hope I will have good health, I have everything, all the money would just flow to me. We often pray for all of that. But Thầy say that we're not praying for the sky and the earth to be calm, which means life is not something that is always solid. There's always changes for the good or for the bad. There are disasters, accidents that can happen, or illnesses that we cannot predict. And so we just hope that with this new year, even if, of course, we always want peace, but when something happens to us out of our expectation, then we hope that with our practice of mindfulness, we have enough calm, solidity, clarity to face these challenges, to overcome them with peace. And that what it means that we don't wish for the sky or the earth to be calm, but for us to stand solidly on our 2 feet. I wish you a lot of peace and live happily. Thank you so much, dear Sangha.